Hello again, everybody. Going to talk a little bit of news with you guys today. It was an article just came up, at least in my feed. Uh, Canadian cartoonist loses his job after illustration of Trump went viral. So the premise of this cartoon was after the bodies were discovered of a 23-year-old or a 25-year-old and a 23-month-old Mexican migrants were found floating face down in the Rio Grande, and it really pushes the immigration question and what's going on with it. People are very desperate to get to the United States, and I can understand that. The U.S. I think is one of the best countries in the world. We offer a lot of freedom. Uh, Economically, we are a powerhouse. We have an abundance of jobs, and I'm not uh, I'm not against people trying to come here and make a better life for themselves. The question then comes into what is the right way to do it. So, um, there are some on one side of the aisle that are going, well, we don't need a border, just everyone come here for free, and then and looking at that, and you want to try and make any sense of that, especially when I recently watched the Democratic debates, um, keep myself abreast of the situation where they were talking about free healthcare for everybody. And the question that keeps popping into my head is not the emotional one that they're trying to go for, where they're trying to pander to the base, is what I was essentially feeling like what they were doing. It's how are we going to pay for it? Uh, the, those kind of questions, questions with UBI and anything like that. Don't I can talk about UBI on a different video, but we're going to get to the immigration question right now. So the immigration question, and I apologize if you hear buzzing in the background. I have a fan in here. It is pretty warm, and here in Southern California, it gets a little warm, and I'm trying to kind of cut back on my energy, so I'm not using my air conditioner as much. Um, that's just being economic about it. I have quite frankly, my paycheck doesn't go as far as I would like it to go, but you know, we make do with what we have with what we do. So, get back onto the immigration subject. Um, the the idea of giving more money to immigration customs enforcement, the border patrol, immigration in general, um, and a lot of people are starting to come around to give customs enforcement, give ICE the money that they need. Um, these detention camps, they need money to be able to operate. They need money to be able to provide the necessities, basic living essentials, for these people that are trying to these people that are coming over illegally. Um, and they need to be able to have funding for this in that event. Or ideally, we want to be able to let people in, especially the ones that are going to work hard, try their hardest, become Americans, um, and that. Those are the people that we want in this country. The people that are going to work to become Americans. I don't care if you are highly educated or extremely wealthy or anything like that. I want the best quality people to be in this country. The people that want to have the drive to become Americans. They deserve to be here. But you got to do it the right way. This money that they're asking for that's being asked for by uh, the president and the like. This is for not just those those detention camps to be able to provide some of the BLE, the basic living essentials, for those people. But this is to be able to provide money for the work that is necessary to be able to conduct the investigations and the backgrounds of people, to be able to process more than just, you know, maybe a couple of dozen, a couple of hundred immigration forms or immigration requests a day. And the progressive social justice identity politics types are all against this. No ICE, no nothing like that. And it's absolutely ridiculous, because you're gonna do the same. You're gonna say, all right, we need to get rid of this and whatnot. So, are you asking for these people to be dying in the rivers and deserts? Letting them just cross over freely, those kinds of things are not sustainable by our country. We can't just invite everybody here. It's like, hey, you can have the greatest life. Just make it here. No, it takes the right type of person, the right type of mindset to be able to make it succeed here. And that's what we want in this country. We want the right type of person to come in. I welcome immigration. I don't welcome economic migrancy. And then there's the skewing of the lines where people are starting to talk about, well, these people are refugees. From what? The only thing I can really see as being kind of a refugee crisis is what's going on in Venezuela right now. There is a massive civil unrest going on in Venezuela right now because of both opposing sides of a very socialist country. The Maduro government is very, very totalitarian, and it's really imposing its will on the regular citizens that are there. And then you have the opposing faction. This is the socialist, is them. And it looks like a constant battle and see who can be the fucking craziest. But whatever's on that. I can understand those people wanting to seek refugee status in the United States. And at the same time, you know, when it comes to the refugees, you know, the nearest country of refuge is the one that should be going that they should be going to. So is it going to be Brazil? Is it going to be Brazil? Is it going to be another one of the nations that are down in South America? Is it going to be Mexico that takes these people in? And people in Venezuela, they speak Spanish. You know, I know in Brazil they speak a lot of Portuguese and whatnot. You know, and we can go into the language dynamic all day on that. But you know, into a nation that maybe it's easier for them to understand the language, maybe understand the type of people, because, you know, a lot of the Spanish-speaking nations are also heavily Catholic. They also have those same beliefs and whatnot. So that's something to be thought about. But even then, with you know, fleeing a war zone or fleeing an active, you know, where you're being oppressed, that's your refugee status. When it comes to, oh, there's so much crime in our country and this is corrupt and whatnot, this is where you start losing out on the refugee status, because then you're not technically a refugee at that point. You're a person that's living in a shitty country. I'm sorry. You're living in a really crappy place where your government's corrupt and your police are corrupt and the gangs run the whole place. And that is a call for those people to be able to try and fight in their own nation. Is it going to be easy? No, absolutely not. And I'll say that wholeheartedly. Fighting corruption inside of a nation is probably one of the harder things you could possibly do. But does that mean that you're being oppressed for a political, religious thing? No, it just means you've got a really crappy country and you need to do so, and the people of those nations need to be able to do something about it. I don't believe, however, that organized caravans should be able to just march up to our borders and say, hey, get these people over here. But let's go on to another subject where I think is a really, really a hotbed subject, and something that I really find disgusting, um, is the grandstanding on when somebody dies, when people die, and it happens with it can happen on mass shootings, or it can be an immigration thing, children dying and stuff like that. And so many people in politics want to try and in the public light want to try and put their soapbox right on top of a fresh grave, and that is absolutely abhorrent. You put your soapbox on top of the fresh grave and say, "Look what this person did." I look at you with disgust, because this is not a place for politics. This is a place for policy. There's two different things right there: politics and policy. The politics that are going on, it's like it's the Republicans doing it, it's the Democrats doing this, and then I could care fucking less who's doing it. Something needs to be done. Give ICE the damn money. Maybe instead of being able to process only 45 immigration requests a day, they could be processing 400 immigration requests, and that father and that daughter could have made it over into this country. If these organized caravans that they're doing south of the border in Mexico or in Central America, if somebody could shut those things down. Now, I'm not trying to say it's like, well, these people are doing this online. It's part of their free speech and whatnot. And who knows what country these things are based out of? Because when I went onto the website and looked at it, it was all in Spanish, where they're organizing these caravans. But you know, they're asking, what they're asking is to break laws of the United States. And this is where the United States should be able to take a stance. It's like, well, if you come here in one of these caravans, you're not getting in. If you're identified as part of this, you're not getting in. We don't need civil unrest in this country. We don't need any more than we already have. And even then, the civil unrest in this country it turns one's stomach. But I don't know. It's just a physical barrier. Yeah. Maybe the physical barrier doesn't work out as well as it does. I don't know. Anytime I'm thinking of physical barriers, I'm thinking of the physical barriers going on with Hungary, and how they've almost completely eliminated illegal immigration coming in from the Middle East. I think about the walls around Israel, and how you're getting less of an influx of other peoples that are not supposed to be in the country of Israel going in. So I think a strong physical barrier would deter a lot of illegal immigration, and maybe in those portions where they could easily mingle into the population, have that concrete barrier, that big, beautiful wall, as they say it. Because the only other thing that you can do is try and wander in the desert, and that's not. And you're not going to survive that, especially in the deserts of Arizona and New Mexico. You're going to die. In all likelihood, you're going to die. I grew up in a border city, not fully like. My mother moved us to Indiana when I was about third grade or so, but up to that third grade point, I had been living in a city in southern New Mexico called Las Cruces. So I was seeing the exposure of the illegal immigration going through, and the type of consequences that you would see out there. There was a lot of reports coming in from before, we had before it was known, part of the whole Homeland Security, ICE. It was just Border Patrol. And the reports would be coming from Border Patrol, like, we found more bodies in the desert. We found this body in the desert. We found these people in the desert, and they were dead, or they were in a condition that they were close to death. You hear about that stuff all the time, and it's a very dangerous journey. crossing the Rio Grande is not a safe journey. I mean, if you see a big ass wall right there on the other side of the river, it's like, well, I'm not. It's like I'm not going to be able to cross this river and cut my ass through there. You know, maybe getting some formidable sort of barrier, something that people are going to look at from their side is like, I got to cross this goddamn river, and then scale the fucking wall. Fuck that. I'll just wait for my paperwork to get processed. You know, because the deserts of New Mexico and Arizona are death traps. And then you start looking at the. Sorry, I'm repositioning. My back is killing me. You start seeing the blame game. Every time a child dies in the desert or dies of a disease, and they're in the custody of Customs and Border Patrol agents, it's not their fault. They're airlifting people to the nearest aid stations. I know you probably hear my roommate's TV in the background, but you probably start hearing about that these kids are being airlifted to a hospital, or they're medevaced here, or they're dying. They died in their custody, and it's from diseases like sepsis, dehydration, exposure, drowning. And it's not the fault of Customs and Border Patrol and stuff like that. This is consequence of inaction. Coming from being in the military, there are two types of consequences. You have consequence of actions and consequence of inaction. Consequence of action would be something along the lines of, if you do something, you are ultimately responsible for the coming results of what happens after committing to those acts. And then there's consequence of inaction. Consequence of inaction is from either an unwillingness or inability to be able to do something. You should also be responsible for what happens when you're not able to do it. And right now we are at the impasse of consequence of inaction, and people are dying. People are really dying. Men, women, kids. Because of personal politics, because whatever. They can't get their shit together and come up with a unified voice of saying, we want these people to live, or we're going to try and process these people through more, or we're going to, no one's getting that voice through. And every one of those deaths is not going to fall on those Border Patrol agents. Those guys are doing their best, trying to keep people from dying in the desert, dying in rivers, dying in the streets. They're trying to do something. And if that means putting people in a detention camp, that's a hell of a lot better than being out in the desert with no water, no food, sick children. The deaths of those people should not fall on those hands. What it should fall on is on the heads of the people that cannot come up with a functioning policy, a functioning, allocation of funds. Something needs to be done. Am I smart enough to be able to think about all of this? And no. Because I ultimately I'm not coming up with, I'm coming up blank on, well, what is our budget? What can we afford to send over this way? What kind of price tag is it going to carry? And honestly, I don't know. I don't know what's going to be sustainable. But I know certain things aren't sustainable. I know unfettered illegal migration is not sustainable by this country. Not from a social or economic standpoint. But something needs to be done. And I was actually pretty excited when I had heard that there was going to be about 15,000 Mexican troops that are going to be trying to deter the illegal immigration going across the border. Now, I don't know what the how effective it's going to be, but it's something right now. It's something that we can work towards. And trying to keep the illegal migration coming in from the south of the Mexican border, where they're placing, I believe it was like, what was it, like 4,000 of their National Guard into positions where they can try and stop the flow or stem it of illegal migration going in to Mexico. And who knows? Maybe this kind of stuff, maybe putting troops there, can help solve some problems. Maybe with the drugs, with the rapes, with the killings, the draw of bringing people into the country. And I don't know, maybe in the United States we should prosecute coyotes more harshly in this country. Who knows? But this is just semi-coherent ramblings. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with that with the name for my video blog. But comment below and let me know if you have any ideas, because I'd really like to be able to start discussing things like this. Thank you.